Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to do a series of special selections today, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from it's Israeli prog metal again. This band is led by a woman I know from her work as a metal journalist and her love for Pain of Salvation. This is the first single from their upcoming second album. The band that we're going to be checking out is Orpheus Blade. We're going to be looking at their track My Arms for Those Wings. Let's dive in and see what they're bringing to the table.
Crown me nightmares, clad me starlight, make me weaker still. Take my essence in this wasteland. Skies weren't meant to heal. On my hands shine tranquil colors, spilled their stolen rings. Broken shapes are humming. I will give up my arms for those wings. Shattered cities arch their backs, reverted from raindrops and tears collecting thoughts in their muscles. I climbed a shrine knowing it would be my last purge. Unknown, wrong-bedded, perennial sad revenge. Coffee names with dismantled, forgotten choice through the stone or the coldness of Sarkon.
Yeah, so still working within that 3 framework, but not emphasizing within groupings of 3. We had this nice rising and falling idea in the guitars. Yeah, really nice transition into this layered vocals.
In this ether where there is nothing but atrocious gloom, I'm the child of twilight and the aftertaste of sweat. We are punished for our sins of procreating new earths, made of pleasant dreams, made of glass and bone.
Love the counterpoint through the entire previous section. Cool. It's really interesting to listen to the song have such a melodic component to it, and then we get this guitar solo that is just completely static on the harmonic level. It's really interesting where this chorus certainly breaks up the song, but everything else feels very linear. I'm curious what the structure is to this. Okay, so I guess the harmonic element wasn't as dynamic as I was remembering. We certainly had a very dynamic harmonic component in the middle of the track, but there's still a lot of um more static harmony ideas that are more traditional for metal placed throughout the song as well. So the solo doesn't come out of nowhere. It just kind of smacked me with a sound I hadn't heard in a while. All right, so interesting track. A lot of this is based around 6/8, though there are some moments when we head into a 4/4. Either way, the song has this constant forward momentum to it in either of the time signatures, and that forward momentum is paired with the structure of the song, which, like I was just talking about, I'm not quite sure what it is. There's certainly a chorus that we hear 3 times, but the sections between are quite varied. Our intro feels like its own unique section more than just an introduction to the track, and it leads into an opening verse that we never hear again. So to start off, we have an ABC, very linear. Then it feels like we go into a D and an E, back to our C, and then an F, back to our C, to a G. We have a brand new outro as well. That felt similar to something we had heard. It could have been a variation, but was mostly unique to my ears. And so it feels very much like a rhapsody where every once in a while we return to a refrain or a chorus. I really dig that. It allows the song to feel fresh and forward moving, but have these checkpoints of return to form that allow the listener to find familiarity somewhere in the song, a sort of home or center for things to return to. That's just a guess, though. I don't know if that's the actual structure, but that's what I picked up here. There are elements that I do recall from previous sections in some of these, so they might not be brand new sections entirely. Much like our outro, they could be a variation of something we have heard before, but for the most part, a lot of it felt unique moving forward. And so things were kept varied and fresh throughout the entire track, even if there was a section that was closer to death metal, I think is where some of these sections went into. Uh, it was short lived, or in another way of saying that the section which didn't really work for me as well was going to be over soon, and we would be exploring something new. On the topic of variety, I really enjoy the compositional variety as well. There are some sections which lean more into traditional metal sounds of having a riff and a single or maybe two chords to bounce between, and really having the static harmonic quality with a sick riff on top of it, or just heavy brutality. These sections were usually mixed with her harsh vocals and really leaned into the metal side of things, though she did have the band has a melodic side to them as well, with the clean vocals and the moving guitar lines, less of a reliance on rule of cool writing and more of atmospheric writing. And I really enjoyed these sections. We saw a lot of this in the middle. A lot of it was condensed to the middle as well. The opening leans more towards metal stuff. The outro is more towards metal stuff. But in the middle, we had this nice compact section of a compact moment with a series of sections that had more of a melodic edge to it. And I really love the chorus, also brings a nice melodic component to it. Um, and just really gorgeous moments to help break apart some of the more brutal sections throughout the track. There's just a lot of variety to the way that things are written. Everything in here is definitely metal of some sort, whether it's alt metal or death metal, or I don't know, there's even some heavy metal inspirations or leanings in here. I don't think anything exactly goes in that direction, but I can hear some inspiration from it, some influence. But they find variety within all of this and explore all of this in ways that I think helps the song feel fresh. Again, from moment to moment, there's always this idea of contrast and change going on. I mean, we can even look at the intro, which I think is the most divergent section of the song, which was mostly created with quiet, whispered vocals, and no, they weren't whispered, they were just very quiet, and ambient sounds and noises. Definitely tied together in a rhythmic fashion, but I don't think anything that was being played there were instruments, or at least a traditional way to play the instrument. It's just a very ambient, introspective intro that we didn't hear that, that style again throughout the track. But again, it sort of separates everything, and I thought it did a fantastic job of crafting a sort of tension of raising the interest of the listener. It did go on for quite a bit. I thought it was a very patient introduction. I really expected it to be half the length, but I appreciate that they went for as long as they did to really hold on to the tension before they go ahead and release it with that, metal explosion. And of course, talking about contrast and variety vocals. We have the quiet vocals at the beginning. We have clean, forward placed rock vocals. We have two types of harshes in here, don't we? We have a lower fry and a higher fry. I don't think I heard Growl's false chord stuff, but there were definitely some lower harshes in here. Plus, we had layered vocals. We had cleans with harshes under them. Yeah, just a ton of variety coming from the vocalist as well. So there's just I'm enthralled with the width of skill that all of the performers put into this single track. Don't think I would expect every song from them to have such variety, but to hear the guitars move from more melodic ideas to, moving chord progressions to rule of cool static harmony kind of stuff. The vocalist doing everything that they do, all the different drumming styles that come into play here, and even just on a more compositional level, the uh, random sounds, the I don't know if I could call them field recordings, but again, it's just random hits. A lot of it sounded like it was metal, just hitting metal things and having all this dancing around the vocals. Um, there's just a lot of variety in here that showcases the width of their skills, both in their instruments and as composers. And like I said, I don't know that I would expect this in every song moving forward, but I think it's a fantastic song to get introduced to them as it has a wide palette of their influences and skills. It's a real nice display for that. Um, the song itself, though, I've kind of talked about all these individual components, but what is the song doing? And for that, I can't quite answer it. That's usually one of the big things I like to answer in here is, what's the story that the song is telling? All these little parts, what are they adding up to? I don't know. And I think my big problem with that is that I still don't get a good strong read on metal emotions. Most of the rule of cool writing in here just sounds metal to me. It sounds angsty. And so we have a song that bounces between that angsty aggression and the more melodic based chorus that, again, I don't really get a strong read on. It feels, I don't want to use the word generic, but iterative. It's a very common chord progression that we hear in a lot of bands, especially in the metalcore side of things, where we transition from heavier, um, less harmonic ideas in our verse into a more harmonically sound chorus, moving from heavy to soft. And so this type of chorus is very common, and because of that, I don't really have a strong feeling of what it's doing. It's sort of just vanilla. It is. It's background music. And it absolutely works for what a lot of these bands need it for, but it just doesn't bring story to the table, which is why I typically don't bring this up when we look at more popular bands, because the chords being used are sort of just the chords to use when you write music. Um, but yeah, between the two of those, like the only storytelling I get out of this is the ebb and flow of it all. And oh, speaking about ebb and flow, well, let me finish this thought real quick. The song has nice highs and lows, bringing up to very tense, aggressive highs and bringing it down to, I guess we could call them medium lows. We do have a low low at the very beginning. We kind of start there, but we rise up. We never really return. We sort of move between 5 and 10, I suppose, if we're looking at a 10 scale. Um, and we do have nice fluidity between those two ideas, but what they specifically say to me, I don't know. It just feels like a really well done amusement park ride, a roller coaster. I enjoyed it, but it didn't really say anything to me. The idea of ebb and flow, though, there's two things I specifically want to talk about here. One is that early on in the track, we had a rising and falling, ascending and descending guitar idea that never cropped up again. And it kind of irritated me. By the time I noticed it, it was only about 8 bars long, and I pointed it out, we had already moved past it. It was a fleeting moment, but I really liked it, especially in the context of the title, My Arm for Those Wings. And as she stated at the end of the intro, I would trade or I would give up my arms for those wings, something along those lines. Um, the just judging by the title and that one line, which I think was the only thing I picked up because it was written on paper. I visually saw that. Is a search for freedom, right? Being able to fly is one of the freest things, and this soaring, ascending, and descending concept I thought worked really well with that. I'm curious what the lyrics were at that moment because that musical idea never came back, and I would really like to. I really want to find out that it has a thematic purpose there and it wasn't just some cool sweep picking idea that the guitarist had in their back pocket. They've been practicing for a week. Like, we need to put this in a song. It's sick. And he just does it. And it, like, has nothing to do with the song. It's just a nice lick that they've been working on. I really hope that's not the case. Um, but the other ebb and flow idea I want to talk about, which I think is really interesting, is the solo, the second guitar solo. And I guess we should talk about the first too, but it's a different topic. Man, this band's got a lot to talk about. I don't think I was expecting that with the song being over, but the more I discuss, the more I remember that happened. It's an interesting track in that way. It's almost hidden in plain sight. There's a lot of things in here that feel very iterative, but the more I remember about it, it's like my memory's a bit hazy. I kind of tucked it away as interesting and linear, but each individual section was sort of a bit more iterative. But and like I tucked it away under that like umbrella topic. But as I go in and dig, I'm like, wait, that was actually unique, and that was pretty cool, and we gotta talk about that. Interesting. Anyways, yeah, the second solo, we switched. We were just in a rather harmonically sound section, lots of chord progression, really going for an emotive, a wide emotive atmosphere. And we shift to one chord. We just have the guitar playing this rhythmic thing on a single chord underneath, and the guitar soloing on top of it. There was this real simplicity. It's a massive shift I felt. The guitarist solos over it for a while. We get some nice ideas, and after 16 bars or so, just kind of stops playing. Comes back in for a little idea and quits playing again. And it reminded me so much of jazz soloing, which utilizes silence as a key element of the melody of the solo itself. This happened for probably the last half of the solo, were just these intermittent guitar ideas on top of the backing track, what's sitting underneath the solo. It's a very interesting idea, and I'm curious what led to it. It didn't feel like the typical start and stop concept of trying to get something off the ground but failing. It just felt like someone taking their time. Very cool moment. And I guess that leads me back to the first solo, which was counterpoint against clean vocal work, which was very cool. I wish we would have had more counterpoint going on in here, but I did think it was interesting that we reached a point that felt like a bridge. The guitar solo kicks in, pretty typical coming in a bridge, and then the vocals after like 2 bars began singing as well, over and with and intertwined with the guitar solo. And yeah, it kind of caught me off guard at first, but I found I enjoyed it as the solo or as the duet went on. And that's a word we don't really use too often in metal, is a duet. But I enjoyed it. I'd like to hear more of that in metal, actually. And it wasn't too long after that we got the growls underneath the vocals too. So there's actually this really compact section here where we began to layer melodies in a way that we didn't see outside of it. Interesting. Yeah, but like I can see all these disparate parts and I'm like, that's neat, that's cool. Gotta talk about that one. Look at all this awesome stuff going on. But the song as a whole I still don't have like a really strong understanding of yet. I'm gonna hit some lyrics and see if that clears anything up, but this might be a song that takes a couple of listens for me to really understand what they're going for, aside from, unique moments or cool moments. There is no way I'd ever be able to dissect this. This is a master class in poetry. The sheer vocabulary on display here is ridiculous. The mastery of the language, but also just the amount of imagery and the depth of the imagery and the metaphor, all the figurative language. There's a lot of depth to this, and it is very intricately woven. I have no idea, honestly. It's like looking at a painting that really affects you. You can tell there's something about it that's just getting right down to your core, but you can't quite understand what it is, what it means, why it's affecting you. That's what this poetry is like. I understand what it is, right? Going back to the metaphor, I can see the brushstrokes. I know it's paint on canvas, but I understand these words. I get the gist of most of these sentences, but what it all means is just way over my head. It feels like I'm learning to swim in the ocean. It's a terrible place to learn how to swim. Um, I mean, and it's completely linear too. I don't see consistency of rhythmic ideas of meter. It's free poetry. And I know that there's a chorus that pops in, but I don't know what that chorus is, and it isn't copy pasted throughout here. And since this is a smaller band, they only have 200 subscribers on YouTube, which is quite the shame. Um, but yeah, there's no Genius, there's no Sonic hits for this. There's nothing for me to look at that's gonna help me understand it. Uh, I don't know. I do want to read this one stanza though. It speaks to me, and much like the hypothetical painting I alluded to, I'm not quite sure why it speaks to me, but the images it puts in my head and the way it makes me feel is, well, at least to me, undeniable. It says, under neon glares, counting nights formed out of clay, steel larks beside my bed, they scream throughout in different days. All of our liaisons, horizons bespoke ends of heartbeats, broken insect wings topping towers of an ivory defeat. I just really love the way it flows and the images it makes, and I don't know, man. But I have absolutely no read on what any of this means. So that's going to wrap it up. Um, those are my thoughts on Orpheus Blade's My Arms for Those Wings. What did you think? Put your thoughts, comments, perspectives, opinions, and anything else down in the comments section. If you have any insight into the lyrics, you can find them on this this video for Orpheus Blade. I always put the original video in the description. Click that, go into their description, they have it there. As far as I found, their lyrics aren't on any other website, it's just in the description for their video. If you've got some insight on that, maybe you're a poetic analyzer. Maybe you're a poetic analyzer. Uh, Please let me know. I'm real curious. Let's see what comes up next. Above the comment section is a description box. In there's a link for Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, I greatly appreciate all three of those. We do have a couple more special selections ahead of us, but if that doesn't interest you, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.